I want you to imagine something for a second. It's 2:47 inches the morning. Your house is completely silent. You are in the deepest sleep of your life, dreaming about nothing, just pure blackness. And then, somewhere between the dream world and the real world, you feel it, a presence. You can't see it because your eyes are closed, but your body knows. The hair on your arm stands up. You try to ignore it, but then you feel a soft pressure on your chest. Not heavy, but definite. Something is sitting on you. You force your eyes open, heavy with sleep, and in the darkness, two glowing green eyes are staring directly into yours, just inches away. You want to scream, but your brain hasn't fully woken up yet. You just freeze. That is exactly what happened to me last Tuesday. And trust me, what my cat did next is something I am still trying to explain. This is not just a weird pet story. This is the night my cat proved she knows something I don't. Before this night, I thought I understood my cat, Luna. She's a 2-year-old gray tabby, very fluffy, loves tuna, and sleeps about 16 hours a day. You know, a normal, lazy, adorable house cat. Our routine was very simple. I feed her at 8 p.m., we watch some Netflix. She curls up on the couch, and when I go to bed, she usually follows me and sleeps at the foot of my bed. That's it. Nothing strange. A boring, perfect pet life. But last Monday, the routine changed, and I didn't notice the warning signs. Looking back now, I realize she was trying to tell me something. Animals have instincts that we humans have completely lost. We are so busy with our phones and our emails that we don't listen to the silence anymore. But cats, they listen to the silence. They hear things inside the walls, under the floorboards, and in the dark corners of the room that we cannot even imagine. And I was about to become a student in her class of survival. Monday evening started normally. I opened a can of salmon pate, Luna's absolute favorite. The sound of the can opener usually brings her sliding across the kitchen floor like a tiny race car. But that evening, she didn't come. I had to call her name 3 times. When she finally walked in, her tail was low, and her ears were slightly back. I thought maybe she was just tired or grumpy. Cats have moods, right? I put the food down, and she sniffed it, looked at me with her big yellow eyes, and then walked away without taking a single bite. That was red flag number 1. This is a cat who screams at me if dinner is 5 minutes late. Ignoring salmon pate was like me ignoring $1 million. It just doesn't happen. I checked her nose to see if it was wet and cold. It was normal. She wasn't sick. She was just alert. Later that night, around 11 p.m., I decided to go to bed. I was scrolling through my phone, seeing videos of dogs doing backflips, completely distracting my brain from the real world. I turned off the lamp, and the room went black. Usually, I hear the little jingle of Luna's collar as she jumps onto the bed and finds her spot. But there was no jingle. I called out to her, "Luna, bedtime!" Silence. I squinted into the darkness and just barely saw her silhouette. She wasn't on the bed. She was sitting right in the middle of the bedroom floor, perfectly still, staring at the door. Not looking at the door. Staring. Her body was completely frozen, like a statue of a cat. I whispered, "What is it, girl?" Her ear twitched, but she didn't look at me. She just kept staring at the crack under the bedroom door, where a thin line of light from the hallway leaked through. I got a weird feeling in my stomach. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and forget why, but you feel like you're not supposed to be there? I felt that in my own bedroom. I told myself I was being silly. I'm an adult. I pay taxes. I'm not supposed to be afraid of a cat staring at a door. So I rolled over, pulled the blanket up to my chin, and forced myself to fall asleep. That was my biggest mistake. I should have trusted Luna. The nightmare began at 2:47 a.m. I know the exact time because when this was all over, I looked at my phone with shaking hands. I was deep asleep, but suddenly, I became aware that my chest felt tight. Not painful, just heavy, like someone had placed a heavy book on my ribcage. My brain was screaming at my body to move, but sleep paralysis is a terrifying thing. You are conscious, but your muscles are turned off. I managed to fight through it and opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was the shape of a cat, sitting directly on my sternum, looking down at me. It was Luna. Her face was upside down from my perspective, her chin close to mine. She was breathing slowly, and her whiskers were twitching. But here is the shocking fact that still gives me chills. She wasn't purring. If your cat sits on your chest, 9 times out of 10, they are making biscuits and purring like a motorboat. This was silent. Dead silent. She wasn't looking at my face. She was looking past my head, toward my headboard, toward the wall behind me. Her eyes were wide, black saucers, and her pupils were so big I could barely see the green. I whispered, "Luna?" She didn't react. It was like I wasn't even there. Then, she slowly raised her right paw and placed it gently on my lips. Gently, but with clear intention. She held it there, trembling slightly. She was telling me to shut up. It sounds insane to say a cat tells you to be quiet, but there is no other way to describe it. That was a communication as clear as any human word. My heart started pounding so hard, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. She kept her paw on my mouth for what felt like a whole minute, her head slowly turning to the left, then to the right, scanning the dark room like a security camera. Then I heard it, a sound that didn't belong in my house. It was a soft, scratching sound, coming from the living room downstairs. Not the scratching of a tree branch on a window. This was a rhythmic scratch, with a pattern. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Pause. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Pause. It sounded intelligent. It sounded like something was trying to find a way in. Luna removed her paw from my mouth, and she turned her whole body to face the bedroom door. Her back arched up, her fur puffed out like a bottle brush, and a low, guttural growl came from her throat. I have never, ever heard a cat make that noise before. It wasn't a hiss. It was a deep, protective growl, the kind a guard dog makes when a stranger jumps the fence. I slowly sat up, trying not to make the bed creak. The scratching downstairs stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. It meant that whatever was downstairs was now listening to us, listening to it. Luna jumped off the bed and padded silently to the door. She lowered her head to the crack, sniffed, and then let out the most terrifying yowl I have ever heard. It was like a siren, a warning. She was screaming at the door, her body low, her ears flat against her skull. This was the moment my fear turned into pure adrenaline. My cat, my sweet fluffy Luna, who was scared of the vacuum cleaner, was ready to fight. She was defending me. She had known all evening that something was wrong. The refused food, the staring, the watching while I slept. She wasn't being a weird cat. She was standing guard. She was the only thing between me and the thing on the other side of that door. I grabbed my phone and dialed for help. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it twice. The light from the screen lit up the room, and for a split second, I saw Luna's face. It wasn't the face of my pet. It was the face of a wild, fierce protector. That image is burned into my memory forever. I realized then that we don't own cats. We earn their trust. And that night, Luna earned mine forever. But the story doesn't end here. The next morning, I found something outside my door that confused me even more. Something that proved this wasn't a dream. I'm not going to reveal it yet, because you need to see it to believe it. But if you want to know what was scratching at my door at 3 a.m. and what I found the next morning, you have to watch part 2. The truth is stranger than any horror movie, and it all revolves around a small detail I had completely ignored for weeks. I'll be posting the evidence very soon, so hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Turn on all notifications, because if you miss part 2, you will miss the scariest discovery of my life. Luna is still watching the door every night, but now I watch it with her. Thank you for being here, and remember, when your cat stares into the dark, it's not always a bug they're looking at. Stay safe. Where did I leave you? Right. The door. The scratching. The growl. That didn't sound like it came from a cat. I was sitting in the corner of my bed at 3 in the morning, my phone clutched in my hand. the screen the only source of light in that pitch-black room. Luna was still at the door, her body rigid, her tail puffed up like a pipe cleaner. The sound downstairs had stopped, but the silence was somehow louder. I called the police. I whispered into the phone, terrified that the thing on the other side of the wall would hear me. The operator told me to stay where I was, lock the door, and wait. I told her the door was already locked. She said, "Good, don't open it for anything." As if I needed to be told that. I hung up, and that's when I noticed Luna had finally moved away from the crack under the door. She turned her head slowly and looked directly at my bedroom window. Now, my bedroom is on the second floor. There is no balcony, no tree outside, no logical way for anything to reach that window. But Luna was staring at it with the same intensity she had just given the door downstairs. Her body was low to the ground, and her mouth was slightly open, making a soundless hiss. I realized with a cold shiver that the danger wasn't just downstairs anymore. It had moved. It was now outside my second-story window. I saw a shadow move against the glass. Not a bird, not a branch. A shape that was too slow, too deliberate, too heavy. My brain refused to process it. I dove off the bed and grabbed Luna, pulling her into the closet with me. She didn't fight me. She just let me hold her, and I could feel her tiny heart beating as fast as mine. We sat in that closet, in the dark, surrounded by old shoes and winter coats, listening to the absolute silence of a house holding its breath. After what felt like an eternity, blue and red lights flashed through the window cracks. The police had arrived. I heard heavy footsteps on my porch, a loud knock, and a voice shouting, "Police, open up!" I crawled out of the closet with Luna still in my arms. I didn't let her go. I walked downstairs on legs made of jelly and unlocked the front door. 2 officers stood there, their flashlights blinding me. One of them, a tall man with a calm face, looked at me and said, "Are you okay, sir? We got a call about a break-in." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. I just pointed toward the living room. They swept the entire house, every corner, every closet, every window. They found no one. The doors were all locked from the inside. The windows were shut tight. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. The officer looked at me with that look. The look that says, "This guy probably had a bad dream." He said, "Sometimes animals get spooked by raccoons or squirrels on the roof. It happens all the time." I nodded, but I knew it wasn't a raccoon. A raccoon doesn't make a cat refuse salmon pâté 6 hours before it arrives. A raccoon doesn't make a shadow appear on a second-story window. The officers left. The sun was starting to come up now, a pale gray light creeping over the neighborhood. I stood in my living room, still holding Luna, and I laughed a little. It was a nervous laugh, the kind you do when you almost fall off a ladder. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I imagined it all. Then Luna wiggled out of my arms and walked straight to the front door. She sat down and stared at the bottom corner of the doorframe. Her tail did that twitch again. I knelt down to see what she was looking at, and my blood went ice cold. There, on the white painted wood of the doorframe, right at the very bottom, was a handprint. But it wasn't a normal handprint. It was dirty, made of something dark, like mud mixed with ash, and it was too small for a grown man, but too large for a child. The fingers were long and thin, and they had scratched the paint. 4 distinct scratch lines ran down from where the fingers had gripped the wood. This wasn't a raccoon. This wasn't a branch. Something had been trying to push my door open from the outside while I was sleeping, and the only thing that stopped it was a locked deadbolt. Luna had heard the scratching stop because the thing had moved from the door to the window. It was circling the house, looking for another way in. I felt sick to my stomach. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the handprint. My hands were shaking so badly the picture came out blurry. I took another one. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I went outside and checked the ground beneath my bedroom window. The flower bed was completely flattened. Not just stepped on, flattened, like something heavy had stood there for a very long time. And in the soft dirt, right below the glass, were the same long-fingered handprints pressed into the mud, 2 of them, side by side, as if something had been pressing its face against the glass, looking in at me while I slept. I called the police again. This time they took it seriously. They took photos, they took samples of the dark substance on the doorframe, and they told me they would increase patrols in my neighborhood. But one of the officers, a younger woman, pulled me aside before she left. She looked at Luna, who was sitting on the porch, still watching the street with her wide yellow eyes, and she said, "You know, my grandmother used to say that cats don't just protect you from mice. They protect you from things we can't see, things that only come when we're too comfortable to notice." I didn't know what to say to that. I just stared at her. She smiled a small, sad smile and said, "Keep your cat inside, and maybe get some motion sensor lights." Then she walked away, and I was left standing on my porch, holding a photo of a handprint that didn't belong to anyone I knew. That day, I installed cameras. I put new locks on every window. I trimmed the bushes back so no one could hide in them. But the scariest part of this whole story, the part that still keeps me up at night, a week later, I checked the cameras. At 2:47 a.m., exactly the same time as that first night, the motion sensor on the back porch triggered. The video showed Luna sitting on the couch, completely still. And then, a shadow passed across the glass door. Slow, deliberate. It stopped for 10 seconds, then moved on. Luna didn't even flinch. She just turned her head, watched it pass, and then looked directly into the camera lens, as if to say, "I've got this. You can go back to sleep." I never found out exactly what that thing was, but I learned something. We live our lives thinking we're safe because we have locks and alarms and logic. But animals don't live in our logical world. They live in the real one. And the real world has things in it that logic can't explain. Luna has saved me from something I can't name and can't prove exists. And every single night, she still sits by the door at 2:47 a.m. She doesn't growl anymore. She just watches. And that's almost more terrifying. Because it means, whatever it was, it's still out there, and it might come back. If this story gave you chills, if you believe me, or even if you think I'm crazy, you need to do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the bell, because I'm posting that camera footage. The shadow, the handprint, the flattened flower bed. I'm going to show you everything, and I need you to help me figure out what this is. Share this video with someone who has a cat. Ask them if their cat stares at doors at night. You might just save them from something they don't know is watching. And to Luna, my little guardian with the green eyes, thank you. You deserve all the salmon pate in the world. Stay safe, everyone, and lock your doors. All of them. Even the ones you think are safe.